A recent Pink Bike article highlighted the huge pay gaps in the world of downhill racing. And whilst that's probably not a surprise to many, it still raises a lot of questions. And I had access to a few people that might have the answers.
You could estimate 15 to 20,000 US dollars for a race week for a big team like ourselves.
It's just a terrible time in the industry.
Dude, I had like a wad of bills. I don't know, it was some ridiculous amount of money, like 80 grand or something like that.
I mean, we're bleeding money in one of the worst economies for the bike industry that we've ever seen. Definitely the worst I've ever seen.
The outgoings are huge, so yeah, I could see maybe it just shrinking us down to doing the cool Red Bull events and not having a huge setup.
Some of the top riders are on salaries in excess of $500,000, but where does that leave the rest of the field? With the whole industry in a period of contraction, I wanted to know how these figures compared to the past.
You had your guys at the top that I think were probably making pretty good money. I would guess like Sam Hill back in his prime, but it was definitely like if you're in the top 10, I think you were probably making like enough to consider it really a living, and if you're outside of that, you are going to be living probably pretty tight. And I would say nowadays there's more than 10 guys that are making decent money. There's probably more in the like 15 to 20 range, and they're probably making like 60 to 80 grand as like a base salary. And I would say there probably was only maybe 10 guys making that early on, but I feel like there's maybe 5 to 10 more guys now kind of would be considered in that group. And then you obviously have a really big step up to like, you know, the top 5, and then especially like those top 2 championship guys that are making like, you know, probably 5 times that.
It's not all about salaries. Riders contending for the podium have even more opportunities to earn. So here's a question. How much do you think riders get for a win?
The prize money at the World Cups, like it's great. You get a little bonus of $4,500 or something if you win, but it's not like the win bonuses from your sponsors. Those are like always way bigger than bonus money from the race.
$4,500 for a win, so accounting for inflation, I'm guessing the win bonus used to be much lower.
I don't feel like there's been a huge change in prize money from now till back then. I remember like when I was winning a lot of races, all the races were like a little different. How much you would get from race to race, there wasn't like a set amount that you always got the same. And then you got currency, and sometimes like they deposit into your bank account, sometimes it was just cash, sometimes it was all over the place. I remember when I won in South Africa, I came home and dude, I had like a wad of bills, and like the South African rand, $1,000 is like $10 or something like that in US money. So I rolled up with like, you know, I don't know, it was some ridiculous amount of money, like 80 grand or something like that. And it was like $3,500. And I remember just handing the chick at Wells Fargo like this stack of like $1,000 bills or something, and she was like, wow. And I was like, it's not as much as you think. And she starts counting them all, and she does the currency, and she's like, oh wow, yeah, that's not very good for you.
Aaron's guess isn't far short of Pink Bike's survey, showing a handful of riders earning in excess of $500,000. Clearly, salaries make up a significant portion of overall expenses. However, with the series expanding from 7 to 10 races, what else do the teams have to factor in? And are they demanding more money from their sponsors?
Yeah, it's more expensive. We have a much higher registration fee than we've had in the past. With that, we do get some more benefits as far as pit space and media content, media package and stuff. It's like all included in one fee now.
Yeah, the running costs are pretty high. It also depends on what your riders do and what bonus programs they are. You know, most of our team is Canadian, so shipping them over is tough. So we try and get a lot of our staff based in Europe. Yeah, it's no cheap endeavor.
We'll just see how it goes this year, as I said, and see what the value actually is. We're willing to pay for it if it is in turn valuable.
With many believing we are on the edge of a global recession, it does feel like a strange time for an expansion to the World Series. It's not the first time the series has needed to weather an economic crisis, so I wondered how the teams coped in the past.
I kind of got into it in the early 2000s. We just had a big economic crisis in 2001, and so things are pretty bad going into 2002. I mean, you had guys like Steve Pete, who were the stars back then, setting up their own teams just to race World Cups. That's probably the worst I've seen it. Now I think we've got a bit of an issue. Obviously, the industry is having a pretty tough time. You know, we don't have a lot of money coming in from outside the industry. So with the added events, creates an expense. With added riders to teams, creates more expense. So from a team side, it's really tough right now because you're having to spend a bit more money, but also you're dealing with a downturn in the economy. So it's pretty hard.
So with increased entry costs and a more elite series pulling in big name sponsors, are teams seeing this money filter down to support their additional running costs?
Not that I've seen. I mean, we're bleeding money in one of the worst economies for the bike industry that we've ever seen. Definitely the worst I've ever seen. So pretty interesting time to increase the amount of events by 50%.
Yeah, overall we're roughly on the same budget, but we've got a much higher operating cost. So unfortunately I've taken quite a pay cut for this year just to like make the team happen and keep going forward. So, you know, you have ups and downs in life. You have years where we do really well after COVID and years like this where you got to take a pay cut. Yeah, not ideal if I'm honest with the new format and the extra races.
Right now, it's just a terrible time in the industry, and it's for probably most brands, it's probably not the right time to be expanding like we are. I do hope that it works out.
This larger, more spread out calendar is contributing to even more expenses, plus knock-on issues like work visas and the inconvenience of living abroad for the majority of the season.
I think most of the calendar is week on, week off, week on, week off. So for an EU-based person, it's not so bad because you get 5 days off. For a North American-based person, it doesn't help at all.
All of our riders are North American, so that definitely makes it more expensive. Everybody's gonna fly over there, and flights are, you know, between $1,000 and $2,000 a race. Then you got your rental cars, your accommodations. Those are also all over the place. Some venues you can rent a house for 7 people for $350 a night, and sometimes it's like $1,200 a night. And then you got your fees, and then you got to have your infrastructure over there to get to the races. When you look at the amount of expenses that it's required just to go race, it's high. You know, and just to put it into perspective, I tell people, we got to go to Europe for almost every race, and that's always how it's been. The guys in Europe, they either drive to the races or they fly like an hour or less, and then they travel over here to North America once a year. So that would be like me racing in the US and never flying past Colorado.
It appears for athletes based outside of Europe, the current series schedule is a bit of a struggle. So, due to financial constraints, could some riders even consider quitting altogether and turning their attention elsewhere?
Yeah, definitely, especially running a team. I could just ride and do some cool videos and go to the street races, and you don't have to spend hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars shipping a whole team around, 4 mechanics, like 2 vans. Like, the outgoings are huge, so yeah, I could see maybe it just shrinking us down to doing the cool Red Bull events and not having a huge setup.
So there we have it. Just like everything else in life, the Downhill World Cup is more expensive than ever for teams and fans alike, without a tangible increase in return. Let's hope the decisions from Warner Bros. Discovery and the UCI make the series more appealing to outside investors and sponsors in the long run, because right now the future appears to be very uncertain. Less than 3% of viewers are subscribed to the channel, so help me continue making videos like this. Please subscribe below, and unlike the World Cup coverage, it's completely free. So what's to lose?